From the Bent Pixel Studios in Las Vegas, Nevada, this is Phone Booth Fighting, a free podcast covering the world of mixed martial arts and beyond with that guy, Frank Mir, the two-time UFC heavyweight champion, current Bellator heavyweight, and
this guy, Reno's funniest man 2 times over, blue belt in jiu-jitsu. Under who? I forgot who gave you a blue belt.
Charles Gracie.
Charles Gracie, blue belt, and retired mixed martial artist.
Yeah, 0-2. I was just asked today about a potential comeback fight. You'll deal with this a lot too, Frank, after you retire. Yeah. You know, the media just doesn't let up. They're always going to be asking you about comebacks.
I'm one of the ones that say if we want to do it a third time, but
yeah,
you got to card our guy. We just got to make sure they're at least 45.
Yes, you have imposed an age restriction.
I'd like to see you versus somebody in their late 40s and not somebody in their late 20s.
Yeah, they'd still, if they were in their late 40s, they'd still have an age advantage. I'm going to turn 50 this year.
Yeah.
Can you believe it? Doesn't that?
No, man.
When you think 50, I'm not. Thank you. I didn't mean to be fishing for the compliment, but what I meant is when I said, "Can you believe it?" Like you at 40, I know when I thought of 50 at 40. I may as well have been thinking of 70. Like that.
At 35,
yeah.
I thought that way.
Okay.
I remember, I think I was, 36? And Maurice Smith came to the gym and was training with us. And we were sparring, moving around. And I was just shocked that a 50-year-old man was still training with us, moving around. And now though, at 40, especially after all the stuff I keep doing to my body, I'm like, oh, I can see myself still fighting at 50. Like if I can keep turning back the clock like I have been for these last 6 months, it could be possible. But you're right. That seeming like, oh, you're like, do you still have sex when you're in your 50s?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's how I was thinking in my mid-30s. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, you might as well have been 90 and put out to pasture. You know, you're like, I remember back when,
Yeah.
But now I'm like, especially now, I train on the weekends with Nick Best, and I get to watch him throw weights around and do shit, and I'm just like, Jesus, man, Nick's older than you. He's 51.
Yeah.
I just spotted him for a squat of 810.
Yeah.
And when we do the cardio exercises together, seeing somebody who, he's doing, I'm picking up a bag and running with it and having a heart attack. I do the 150. He does a 300-pound bag.
Yeah.
So, physically, it's different. But, guys, people, I think, just age so much better now. You yourself, right? If you're conscientious of what you put in your mouth and you try to stay somewhat active, it's not like it was back in the day. Like, even look at Jennifer, my own wife. She is a grandma. She's a gilf, right? Like, she is 45 years old, and if you would have told me back when I was 15, oh, well, you're going to be, one day you're going to be physically attracted to a 45-year-old grandma, I'd be picturing the short, curly hair, the flowery dress, you know what I mean? Like, and nowhere stretching my imagination. I told you, in fact, it was funny. It was probably 3 or 4 years ago when Jen was like, turning 40. Oh my God. I pulled up this thing where it was a contest of women they had here in Vegas. It was like Miss 50 and over. And I was like, these women are all 50 plus. And like looking at them, you're like, holy shit. Like that's not what, so I think that like the clock is different now than it's been in the past.
That's probably
when they
true.
make those jokes like 40 is the new 30 or however it goes, like it really is. People now like you go to your doctor, you can really check your body and make sure that you're healthy and look, gyms memberships aren't exorbitantly priced, and there's so much knowledge with the internet. Like really honestly, if you look like a piece of shit, you pretty much only got yourself to blame.
Well, one way you can turn back that clock is by going to Let's Get Checked. And as it turns out, this episode is brought to you by Let's Get Checked, the leading provider of at-home health tests. Are you looking to improve your male hormone health? With Let's Get Checked, you can do a simple at-home health test that will give you a complete picture of your hormonal health in 5 days. So, Frank, when folks go to letsgetchecked.com, that's the first step. But what's the second step and the other steps thereafter? How does it all work?
Well, by going on there and getting a package sent to you, you're able to follow directions and you do your blood work, and then you send it back in, and then on real time you can actually see it, your results, and they'll graph it. So if you do multiple tests, you can see where you're at, how you're doing. It'll be explained to you via the internet. You'll be able to go online and look. If you are on a TRT program, this might not be for you. You can go to your doctor. He's blood checking you. You're doing this. But if you're somebody like myself, right, or you who are really not for that, I want to make sure, because I can't take external exogenous testosterone, obviously, as a professional fighter. Are my eating habits really helping out? What are they working? Am I sleeping enough? Am I training enough? And otherwise, you're just, I feel good. But look, a lot of people, especially Americans, I travel the world, and one thing about Americans is we are the hardest working people, to the point to where, like other places, they get all kinds of paid time off. Everywhere else, whether you want to say it's good or bad, as Americans, we could push ourselves harder than any other culture I've seen in my experience. So when you say, I feel okay, I'm like, nah, you're just too tough for your own good. And that's what I really feel the average American does. We push ourselves into heart attacks and into bad health and just drive. This is a way of getting a bearing on where you're at. And that's the only way really to attack a problem. You have to have information. You have to see the enemy to be able to deal with the enemy. And so I think that Let's Get Checked is an invaluable tool towards everybody at home, that if you're not going to your doctor and having regular blood work, this is the next thing to do. Have it done at home. It's not invasive. It's not time consuming, and it's just remarkable on the feedback you're going to receive.
Some of the main symptoms of hormonal imbalances include low energy or fatigue, erectile dysfunction, low sex drive or libido, infertility, anxiety or depression, and bloating and headaches. By the way, if you go to letsgetchecked.com right now, and for the next few weeks, I believe it's any time in the month of February, and you use the promo code FrankMeir, that is the promo code FrankMeir, they're upping the discount code. They upped it to 20% off for this month only. So go to letsgetchecked.com, enter the promo code FrankMeir, all one word, and save yourself some money. Get yourself a 20% off value by doing that and supporting the Phone Booth Fighting podcast in the process. Letsgetchecked.com. Joining us now, Frank, via the Skype is Lucky Lauren Murphy, who was indeed lucky, although I don't think luck played as big of a part in it as skill did, this past Saturday night in Houston at UFC 247, defeating Andrea KGB Lee. Lauren, welcome back to the show. It's good to talk to you, and congratulations on a big victory Saturday night. How you doing?
Thank you. I'm doing really good. Yeah, I feel good. My face is starting to heal up a little bit, but yeah, I always sport a lot of damage after fights now, so it takes a minute for me to get back to kind of normal looking these days.
I don't know. You look pretty normal looking to me.
I put on a bunch of makeup, but ever since I went to 125 and started cutting weight, my face, like my eyes swell up when I get hit in them bad. I get a lot of bruising now. I never used to really be like that the first half of my career. It seemed like I didn't wear that much damage, and the last 3 or 4 fights I've noticed I really started wearing a lot of damage. And it could be the competition too, you know what I mean?
Probably has a lot to do with it. Are you finding any funny ways to deal with the fact that you probably get those weird looks still at the shopping? You're at the store and they're like, "Oh, girl, you should leave him." Don't take that.
We do. People just when we go out to eat sometimes, and after a fight, all you want to do is go eat and go see your friends. So yeah, we've just kind of learned to brush it off, and actually people recognize me a lot more now, so it's a lot less awkward if at least one person recognizes me. Wherever we go, then they can be like, "Oh, she's a fighter," and then I don't have to explain it. And so it's getting better for sure.
Imagine walking around with your daughter and she has bruises on her.
Yeah, that's what Frank's dealing with now, because his daughter's training to become a fighter. So.
Oh man, so you guys probably get all the dirty looks.
Yeah,
after
I definitely abusive father, and and I'm twice her size, so I'm waiting for someone to call the police on us at a restaurant.
We want to get shirts that just say stuff on them, like "You should see the other guy."
Yeah.
Or it wasn't me, or something.
He's doing the dishes from now on.
Yeah. That's funny. You bring up your husband, Lauren, because when we were watching the fight, my girlfriend Jennifer and I were watching the fight, and she goes, you won, and they show your corner guys, and she goes, "Is that her husband?" And I said, "Yeah, I think so." And about that time, Lauren jumps up on him, wraps her legs around him, and starts kissing him. And Jennifer goes, "Well, I hope it is."
It's an awkward moment if it wasn't.
That would have been real awkward. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about this fight because, for anybody, obviously, who's followed women's MMA for a long time, even going back to the Invicta days, and now that the flyweight division has been established for women in the UFC, they know your name as a perennial top 10 contender, but this was a fight that I think even though you came in, if I'm not mistaken, you were maybe ranked one spot above Andrea Lee, you were an underdog, like 3.5 to 1, 4 to 1, something like that. I mean, this was an upset.
Yeah, it was, and it's really an upset because most of the fight was contested on the feet.
Yeah,
and that's where I think people really did not expect me to shine as much as I did. But yeah, I'm super proud of my performance. I'm really, really happy with it, and I've watched the fight back a couple times, and obviously there's always things that we could do better. Like I'm already thinking about the stuff I want to improve on, but I feel like I showed up and showed out that night, and so I'm really happy.
I'm still noticing that. I feel like the women's movement is such embraced and really represented by female mixed martial arts. But I wonder how much the fact that Andrea Lee, she's been in a lot of magazines, doing a lot of a lot of attention in that way. How much that factors into people favoring her in the fight? Because when she was favored so drastically, I didn't see it warranted. Yeah. But then I tried to go, well, it feels more so, even though it is amongst the men, sometimes it can become a popularity contest on who they think is going to win. I wonder, do you feel that it's even worse amongst the female fighters?
Oh, for sure. Just in our case, Andrea has 150,000 followers on Instagram. I have 13,000 followers on Instagram.
Right. Well, I'm one of them. So quality over quantity. I'm one of them.
Well, thank you. No, I appreciate it. But it really does have a lot to do with my Instagram is full of me and my husband, me and my dog. We do house renovations. It's a lot of me training and looking like hell. And hers is a lot of her posing in photo shoots. And I'm not knocking it. I'm saying she has a large fan base, and she deserves to have a large fan base. But it definitely does make a difference in public perception because the ratio is so skewed when it comes to people that support her as opposed to people that support me.
Well,
I'm really not knocking it. I don't want it to come across like that. But in women's MMA, some of the women in MMA have huge, huge followings based on the pictures that they post and the way that they look. And in Andrea's case, she's a very exciting fighter as well. And so she has a ton of fans.
Well, before we let it go any further, then throw out your Instagram handle so we can try to even these numbers a little bit. Let's get the phone booth fighting listeners behind you there. What's the Instagram?
I'm at Lauren Murphy MMA, and that's on Instagram, which I'm mostly on, and on Twitter. Okay. I stay away from Facebook these days, but I'm pretty fan receptive, and I talk to a lot of people on Instagram, so hit me up. Yeah, I'm around for sure.
Oh, okay, and phone booth fighting listeners, don't embarrass us now. Frank and I are putting you on the spot. Let's have Lauren see a spike in those followers. By the way, speaking of home renovations, it looks like I see some people carrying some building supplies or something just outside the window.
I'm doing house renovations right now. I'm literally in the middle of it, and I put down the hammer and the saw to come out here and talk to you guys.
Thank you.
But today's the fun day. It's demo day, so we're just pulling it. We just bought a house. We closed on it last week, and we're pulling out all the flooring today, all the trim, all the shelving that's installed in the house right now. We're going to take all that out. So
damn, I mean, it is Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
Did you take any days off, or did you get right back on it?
Off.
We at least took you at least had, was not even a 3-day weekend because you were working Saturday, traveled on Sunday, so I guess you took yesterday off. I mean, that's a workhorse there, huh?
Yeah.
To be honest with you, we closed on this house a week before the fight, and I love doing this stuff. I love doing house renovations. I cannot wait because this is really the house that we closed on. It's really cool. It's going to be all over my Instagram, but it's a really cool house, and I'm excited to make it into our dream home. It's got a really big backyard and a nice
so this isn't a house you're flipping. This is for you guys.
This is for us, and we're going to live here. Our plan is to live here for the foreseeable future, the next 5-6 years. And but we always have in our mind that we want to increase the value of whatever house we're living in. So we bought it for a certain price. We're going to immediately increase the value, making it look the way we want to look. And then before we leave, whenever that will be, we'll make sure that the value of it is higher than what we bought it for.
Lauren, that makes me so happy to hear someone who's a successful fighter who's also smart in other areas, because that's one thing that scares me is there's so many people in the fight business that I'm like, you don't realize it's going to come to an end.
Yeah.
And, you know what I mean? Like, and, you know, some people just haven't made enough of a name where I'm like, hey, you know, you're not going to live off your Instagram, dude. I don't know what to tell you. And they don't have anything else coinciding with their career. And just, it's a train wreck waiting to happen. And just, there's nothing you can tell guys because they don't believe it's going to come to an end, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. No. All our careers end at some point, and I'm well aware, you know, like not only of how old I am, but I'm just well aware that we have such a short time in fighting anyway. And it's like pretty soon I'm going to be buying my tickets to the UFC and wishing it was me that was still in the cage. So I try to keep that in mind a lot, you know, and it keeps me grateful and it keeps me hardworking and it also keeps me kind of smart when it comes to our finances.
What prompted, because I know you've moved to Houston. And you now share a coach with Derek Lewis, if I'm not mistaken, right?
That's right. Yeah, good old Bob Perez, the general.
That's right. He's got the 19th century strongman in the circus mustache. That's what I always.
Dude, that thing is not moving for nothing.
Yeah,
that thing is styled by the hand of God. I'm pretty sure.
Now, because I know you were in Arizona and you guys moved out there to Texas, which is my home state. What prompted the move for you?
Training, really. I was training at the lab, and my husband was the GM at the lab as well, out in Arizona.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of great guys out there. We were really deeply entrenched in the lab for a long time, but you know, I went 2-4 fighting out of the lab, and I just felt like it was really, I needed some change. I wanted to be surrounded by my coaches out here. One of them took me through Invicta. His name is Alex Cisne, and he was my coach through Invicta. I went 4-0 with him. We fought for Legacy together. He took me through my entire Invicta career, and then when I signed with the UFC is when I went to the lab. And I've known him really well. I've missed him for a really long time, and I came back out to Houston for my last fight camp, and I worked with him and with Bob Perez, and we just had the time of our lives, man. I just felt like I've rediscovered what I loved about the sport. I felt really passionate about what I was doing. I was excited to go to training every day again. I was surrounded by a lot of positivity, which is really a big deal for me. Like, I really want to be in a positive, happy environment because fighting is so hard and it's so stressful. So to be around people and to be around coaches that really believed in me and really thought that I could, you know, be a top 5 fighter in the UFC, and they meet all those, they check all those boxes. So it was time for us to go. And this is what we do. This is what we love. Our lives are entrenched in fighting more than anything else. My husband's a really good black belt, and he got a job out here teaching at Renzo Gracie. So they're opening a school for him soon in Southern Houston, and he's going to have his own school. Oh, okay. And and I'm going to be surrounded by coaches that I absolutely adore. And it just seemed like it would be stupid not to take that opportunity.
No, that's great. If you don't know this, long-time fight fans probably have heard this story before, but this is one of the amazing stories to me, Frank. I don't know if you know this one or not. So, Lauren, you have now been professional, about 10 years, right? I mean, just right about 10 years. And you originally got into MMA because your son signed up for jiu-jitsu and you took him to jiu-jitsu class, and she wanted to be supportive, so she took the class with him. And then she turns out, this would be like my mom when she took me for my first guitar lesson if she had turned out to be the rock star. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's so interesting to me. I mean, that's a great story. Does your son, I don't know how old he was at that time when he signed up for jiu-jitsu, but does that fully compute with him? Like, how interesting and bizarre and cool and I mean, that's basically shaped your entire life for the last 10 years, and not only you, your husband, what he does, but I mean, your son deserves some credit for that too, because I mean, in a strange way, he actually kind of led you to your career path, whether you realized it at the time or not, right?
No, he really did, and one of the things I've always loved about being a fighter is showing Max that, you know, if you commit to something and you really believe in something and you give it 100%, that there's no real downside. Like, we've lost fights before and we've had some hard times in fighting, but we've gotten to live a life that we really, really love. You know what I mean? I don't have a boss. I don't have to answer to anybody. I get to make my own hours. I get to wake up every day and do exactly what I feel like doing. Same thing with my husband, Joe. And I think more than anything, as Max has grown up, he's 18 now.
Yeah.
And he was 8 when that started. I think to show him that if you just really commit and believe and give your very best, you know, that you can have a life that's beyond your wildest dreams. And I love that he got to see that growing up.
Isn't that amazing, Frank?
It's a phenomenal story.
I mean, what if Bella, your daughter, had thought she wanted to train, but Jennifer took her to jiu-jitsu, and then Jennifer ends up turning pro?
That's a really cool story.
She'd probably be a pretty formidable fighter as well, your wife.
Oh,
yeah,
Jesus.
yeah. She might have missed her
She would have
calling.
been banned from the sport.
Yeah.
She's too vicious and evil.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, okay, so with this win over Andrea Lee, I want to talk to you about a couple of the call out you made in the cage and the other idea you had and all that. But I also do want to ask you too. I mean, this was a split decision. I had this for you 29-28, but you know there was. I thought your fight. I didn't think your fight was as debatable as some of the other ones we saw on the card, but I felt like your fight kind of got lumped in with a larger conversation about judging on the evening, you know?
Yeah.
And so, but I wanted to ask you about that because one thing that has been pointed out is there was some controversy about whether or not one of the judges was actually watching the fight or on his phone, and I've had a hard time looking at that conclusively, telling whether or not that's what was happening. He said he was looking down at a monitor, seeing the fight. I mean, I don't know if you've watched it back yet or anything. Do you have a personal thought about any of that? Because that obviously was happening during your fight.
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on all of that. First of all, from what I understand, the person that Joe Rogan was looking at was not a judge. It was a commissioner, and he thought it was a judge. Yeah. And then there was like a video that came out that Andy Wynn took of somebody looking at their phone, and again, it wasn't a judge. Also, the commission released a statement that said like the judges now have monitors that are they're below the level of the cage, so it might look like they're looking down, but they're watching monitors, which like I think Dana and Joe Rogan and the commentators and everybody have those monitors. So I also share the frustration with judging. I think open scoring is a great idea. I would love to know, like, I thought I won the first round of that fight, but 2 judges gave it to Andrea. And so as a fighter, I would love to know like what the score is going into the second and going into the third so that I can adjust my game plan and do what I need to do to have a dominant victory. You know what I mean? I don't want to win by split decision. I don't like that either. But I love the idea of having open scoring. And I think the judging was maybe it was kind of messed up at UFC 247, but I felt that I won that. I felt that I won my fight. I knocked her mouthpiece out 3 fucking times in that fight. Yeah. Like, I mean, I backed her up. I had all the positions on the cage. Every time it went to the ground, I was on top. I scored all the takedowns in the fight. She got 0 out of 3, and I think I landed 2 out of 4. You know what I mean? I don't know what to tell you. Like, it was a really close fight. I understand the frustration with the judging process because I'm honestly not a fan of it either. And I've been on the wrong end of a couple really close decisions myself in the UFC. It is a hard pill to swallow. But I won that fight Saturday night, and I'm extremely proud of my performance. Yeah. And I'm really bummed that the fans booed at the end of it because I think if they had cheered, I think we would have gotten fight of the night. And them booing put a damper on the whole fight. And it was like we just had this – both of us had really good performances. We both put on an awesome, bloody, violent show, which is what they're paying to see. And then to boo at the end of it, I think it took us out of that fight of the night running. And that really bummed me out because those Andrea Lee fans probably screwed her out of $50,000 extra by booing.
Well, that's exactly what it is that she just had more fans in the crowd that were unhappy with how the decision go. But Richard and I are both on the side that we feel exactly how you described it, that you won the fight. It was a close fight and a brutal fight. But look, when things are, I think the problem right now with everybody with judging, and I plan to fix this for myself, and I know you've talked about it. we're actually going to go down and take the course with John McCarthy goes and certifies judges and refs. Because here we are having this debate. I hear Joe Rogan have the debate. I hear Dana say things. And they don't know judge. They never really taken a course on judging. So I hear people throw things around. And just my little bit of working with John McCarthy, he laughs when you say that. He goes, well, he was controlling the ring. He's like, that's not in, you know that no one cares about that, right? Like, the judges don't give a shit who's controlling octagon control.
Yeah.
Like that's not a judging criteria, you know. And so there's so many factors that are going in that, like, basically we're observing, let's say, a football game, and none of us know really how much a touchdown is worth. You know what I mean? Like, well, what's a touchdown versus a field goal? And now we're making it subjective. And then that's the part, too, that I 100% agree with you. It needs to be open scoring, even once we do all figure out how judging works better, so we can speak to it with some kind of, fact-based, opinion. The open scoring is the only way it makes sense. Could you imagine, again, just because the Super Bowl is on top of my mind, football, imagine having a football game and at the end telling everybody what the score is.
Right. Yeah.
And each judge doesn't have the same criteria. So, like, one judge thinks a field goal, in his opinion, is really difficult, and so he gives you 4 points for it. But you don't know about that until the end. And the other judge thinks, hey, running a touchdown is not that hard, but throwing one in is really hard, so that's worth 10 points.
Yeah.
And it changes from fight to fight, judge to judge, because different judges have different opinions. But as a fighter, like what you're saying, Lauren, is if at the end of the first round you're like, oh, they gave her that. I punched her in the face 10 times. She took me down once and she won the round. I'm going to switch gears. I'm going to wrestle more now to win these next 2 rounds. We would have that instead of at the end finding out, well, how did that judge see it? Well, now it's too late. There's nothing I can do about it but your opinion on how to judge a fight.
Yeah. It is tough. It is tough too, Lauren, that the point you bring up, when fans get distracted, whether or not they had their favorite or whatever, I think a lot of times don't see the forest for the trees, in the sense that what you're doing is you're booing a good close fight. You're not booing a robbery. It's not okay, somebody was out of their damn minds. It was, that was close, my fighter didn't win, and I'm booing. But what you don't realize is you're really, the way that that's coming across is it's like you're booing a fine effort from not just one fighter but 2 fighters.
And I've always disagreed with doing that. I'm always pissed when I hear fans that,
Yeah.
And I'll probably get in trouble if I tell you my real opinion. but absolutely, you're right. I wouldn't have thought about that. The fans booing cost even their fighter a fight bonus. Like, wow, like when you said that, I was like, wow, that is a really true statement. I didn't make those connections, but you're absolutely right. They ripped off their own girl because they booed that they weren't happy about the outcome. But it's like, but the fight was awesome.
I felt really bad about that, because it's like, man, I know she has a lot of fans in Texas. She wears a cowboy hat. She's wearing a cowboy hat when the decision was read. Of course they're going to boo the girl that's wearing the cowboy hat that doesn't win. Of course. I got booed when I walked out, and I train in Houston. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's like I knew she was going to have a lot of fans there. And I just felt so badly that they didn't appreciate what an awesome fight it really was, because it was one of the best female fights I think that has taken place on that canvas.
Oh, yeah. Listen, I got to tell you, just on a personal level, you don't know this, Lauren, but I was sitting there watching that. I said to Jennifer while we were watching, I said, damn it, I wish I could fight like Lauren Murphy. I have had 2 short fights, Lauren, and neither one of them went very well, and I was like, man, I was watching you fight and just keep coming forward like that, and I was like, damn it, I wish I could do that.
But that's what more people I wish
that actually means like really a lot to me. Thanks a lot.
Well, I'll send you the clips of my 2 fights, and it'll mean even more, because you'll be like, oh yeah, gee, I see what you're saying.
And what Lauren's saying, what we all think, that's what I wish fans would appreciate more. Like, look, this past Sunday, again, 3rd time's a charm on the football analogy, I was rooting for the 49ers. I wasn't upset at the end of the game. Like, obviously, I was like, because now I got to hear the trash talking from everybody I'm watching the game with. But I was happy I saw a really great game. I wasn't upset. I was like, hey, that was a really great game. And I don't get why more fans aren't that way, going, hey, now, if your person runs away from you and takes you down and plays the point system and they pull out a really shitty decision, boo away. But now you're booing at the performance, not the outcome.
Yeah, right.
But when 2 people go to war, hey, man, that's phenomenal. They're out there fighting their asses off. Like, that's what you want to appreciate. And fans just, I think it's people that just don't have anything. I don't know. I'll shut up before I get in trouble.
No, I think that's a fair assessment.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
To me, honestly, that type of reaction should be reserved for when a fighter wins a very cautiously, conservatively fought fight. And even then, I don't begrudge the fighter for doing it, but I would tell that fighter, hey, the trade-off is going to be that some of the people who bought tickets, are maybe going to give you a little bit of crap for the strategy, and you're just going to have to accept that because you want to say fight.
Tyrone Woodley versus
Damian Maia.
Perfect example. Like, look, hey, smart fight. You're fighting a dangerous grappler, probably the most dangerous grappler ever in MMA. But guess what? You're going to own the boos at the end. Like, what are you booing for? Like, well, we're booing because the fight sucked. You know what I mean? Like, you got your W, you retained your title, and you say, hey, I'm fighting to retain my title. But then you're going to get boos. Just be like, hey, you got to shrug your shoulders. Like, hey, you know what? It is what it is. I'm going home the champ,
Yeah, for sure. All right, so let's talk about these, where you want to go from here, Lauren, because you mentioned Roxanne Modafferi in the cage. I saw, and that would be great.
Really good
she herself coming off a huge upset over Macy Barber. And I know I think in a post-fight interview, you also mentioned Joanne Calderwood, which would be another a couple of syndicate products from here in Las Vegas.
You're going after all my teammates, dude.
That's where brain trades. But
that's all right.
Look,
good.
They're the only ones that are coming off wins, and they're the only ones that can make weight, which is why I want to fight them, because the other girls in the top 5, 2 of them have missed weight badly, really badly, and the third one is coming off a loss right now. So
that's one factor.
They're the only 2 left coming off wins.
To think of it, I've never had to deal with that. As a heavyweight, it's funny, things that, you talk about, you deal with in different aspects, but I've never had to worry about my opponent missing weight. Like, heavyweights just, obviously we don't miss weight. You know what I mean? Could you imagine, and you're sucked up, you're tired, you're fatigued, you've done everything you're supposed to do to make weight, and you're suffering, and you find out that not only did they miss weight, but they missed it so badly that they possibly canceled the fight altogether. And I couldn't imagine. Like, I think that, like, most of the time our sport's pretty friendly amongst each other. It's like, look, like, you're a warrior, I'm a warrior. I got to kick your ass to bring home the paycheck, but, it is, I understand. But, like, that's one of those things where I think I could really breed some animosity between somebody. Like, well, now you're costing me money because you don't have the discipline to get down. Wow.
Yeah, that's very true. Well, what have you heard any? I know it's only been a few days, but have you heard any preliminary response from either one of these fight ideas you're throwing out there?
Oh, yeah. Roxanne and I actually talk a lot. We're friends.
Yeah.
we talk all the time, and she wrote to me, and she was like, that was so exciting. You called me out. And she's just totally down, and I think it's going to be a great fight. So hopefully they'll do it like I said 3 months, but there's no way the UFC could turn us around in 3 months. I don't think. They just have too many people on their roster. But if we were talking about like 4 or 5 months out, somewhere like maybe June or July, like what about International Fight Week? That would be great, And then we could do it in Vegas, which is Roxanne's like current hometown, and I'll go out to Vegas and we'll have the PI at our disposal. And I think it would just be really great. We'll do it. Tell you what, Mick, go ahead. Just set it up for International Fight Week.
Yeah.
And me and Roxanne will go and throw it down. It'll be a great fight. And, it'll be a fight between 2 top 5 contenders right now, which both of our stories are really cool. Like, our careers were supposed to be over a while ago, I think people thought, and we're both resurging in our careers right now. And I think it's going to be an awesome fight. We're both durable, tough, skilled. Like, what else do people want?
Couple of fighters with Invicta history, I think it would bring up a nice narrative in the fight build up to it. There's not really going to be a lot of trash talking in that, so you replace that with kind of getting a chance to showcase the lineage and the history of women's MMA and kind of what's gotten us to this UFC flyweight division, and be able to, that'll promote some old archive fights on Fight Pass. They got to love that, right?
Those are my favorite kind of fights. No bullshit beforehand.
Yeah.
If you don't want to watch it, then I don't need to fucking fake it for you to watch it, but just a phenomenal fight once the bell rings.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I think that would be a great choice. Couple other just quick things for you, Lauren, because I know you got to get back to your demoing and all that, because you got your tool belt on or whatever. But we I thought about you a couple of weeks ago, and not just you, but some of the other, obviously Roxanne, but some of the other female veterans in the UFC a couple of weeks ago when Roxanne did beat Macy Barber, because that was so bizarre at the end of the fight. And am I confusing you with somebody else, or did you maybe have an online reaction to that whole?
It was me. Yeah,
that was you, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
What was your read on? I mean, I got to tell you, what I saw was like someone who. Here's what I thought happened, and I'm going to give benefit of the doubt here, and you tell me if you think I'm just being too kind. I think the nicest thing you can say about the way that played out was that was somebody who thought that there was way more concern about her losing than there really was. Like, if I had lost a fight and my first thought was, oh my God, the world's going to need an explanation for this. I mean, obviously, everybody was sitting on the edge of their seat expecting me to win this fight, and I can't just have the greater public be bewildered, not be able to enjoy the rest of the evening. I must explain and give this kind of weird qualified explanation. I don't know. I mean, I'm not 20 anymore, however young she is, and I know people make a big, but surely when there, I got to tell you this, if I was in that corner, if I'd have seen that coming, that PR train wreck, I would have been like, get back over here. Don't
do that. Yeah. You bring up a good point. Like, to Macy's credit, she's like 21, I think. And I was a fucking idiot when I was 21. I was a moron. Yeah. So if I had been her age, I probably would have done something maybe similar or the same. But yeah, I think it hurts to lose in the UFC, and it hurts bad. And when you're a big favorite going into a fight and you walk away with a loss, it can really, really, really suck. And I think that's what happened to Macy, and she's going to learn how to deal with her losses better, for sure. Like, I don't think she'll ever do that again, but that was fucked up, man. You don't take the mic from the winner to explain yourself before Roxanne even got her moment. Roxanne was like a 10-1 underdog in that fight. And man, you just got to let her have her moment. And I know it hurts. I know it sucks, but that's what you have to do. And you just got to congratulate them and fucking move on with your life. And you'll end up looking a lot better in the long run. Loss and everything. Well, but she's so young. She's so young. It's like she's got time to learn all that. And Lord knows I was a trick myself when I was that age. So
yeah, I'll tell you what. I think she also caught a little bit of a break too, doing that to Roxanne, because there's a lot of other people who wouldn't have been so nice about. Because Roxanne, even I felt like, was not apologizing for her, but like trying to cushion the blow of like she didn't even take the low-hanging fruit of going, yeah, that was bizarre. Yeah, anyway. All right.
Roxanne has, like, no ego about her. Yeah. No. Roxanne's a really good lady, and she handled it better than anybody on the roster would have.
Yeah. Roxanne is one of the most unassuming human beings. Like, when people sit there, oh, that's a nice person, I can't believe they fight. Yeah. Her picture's in the book when it comes to that description, because she is like the nicest human being. Like, I expect her to be on some kind of like, tour in Africa saving children, like not actually being a professional fighter.
Yeah, for sure. And then one more thing for you, Lauren, and we mentioned this on the podcast, I believe, but I just haven't had a chance to tell you this personally. You, back in November, you and Marion Renault, of all people, had a little back and forth about Michael Vick and my dog Mel on Twitter. And Marion posted, she was upset that I guess the NFL had picked Michael Vick to be involved in the Pro Bowl or something. And Marion Renault, who I did not know had this passion about her, which was great to find out that she was a big pit bull advocate and rescue advocate, had posted about this. And Lauren responded to her and mentioned me and Mel. And I don't know, I know we follow each other, so maybe you saw this, Lauren, but that meant so much to me because Mel had passed away right about that time.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, he was, it was just right about when that happened. Mel was 13 and a half. He was, he was in his 14th year, and his brother passed away just a couple of months after that. So, it's as tough as that was, that's the number you hope for. I mean, you hope that your your dog is with you that long, especially for that breed and all that. So, you know, we were more fortunate than a lot of the people who had rescued the Vic dogs because Mel was one of the youngest. You know, a lot of people didn't get to be with their dogs for as long as we got to have Mel. So, but I just wanted to let you know that because it came at the exact right time. It was just, you know, it was about a month after he had passed away, and the whole thing was going on with Vic and the NFL. Well, nothing surprises me that they do, but I know a lot of people were outraged by it. And it was just nice to see a couple of people that are involved in my sport having just a conversation of conscience about it, I guess is what I'll say. So just thanks for being one of the good people. And same to Marion Renault, and I appreciate you guys for saying what you said. So thank you.
Of course, anytime, and I'm glad that you got all that time with Mel too. It's nice to think that he had all those years with somebody that loved him so much.
Yeah, you know? Thank you you very much. Now, how are you still have your 2 dogs? Yes.
We have one. Joe's dog passed away last year, almost 2 years ago now, and he was our old man. So he went peacefully, but it was hard. Joe actually just got a tattoo of him finished on his arm. And then I have my baby girl. She's all over my Instagram. She's 5 now. She's my middle-aged woman.
Yeah.
She's goofy as ever. So we're Doberman people, Frank. We own we'll probably always own Dobermans, and I have a goofy ass female Doberman that just runs amok all over my Instagram. Well, she loves the new house. It's got a big yard for her.
That's great. She was on the podcast last time you were on, I believe. In fact,
actually she is. She's hanging out right here.
What? Wait a second. Yeah.
Where did she go? Oh, she just took off. When she comes back, I'll.
Okay. Well, I'm sure she's supervising the construction crew in your absence.
Come here, Penny. Come here. Here you go.
Hey, Penny. Hi, Penny. Oh, look at that.
What are you doing, huh?
Hi.
What are you doing?
Hey there. All right, good. That
so that's my girl.
Yeah. Well, listen, we'll let you get back to work there because I know you got a big thanks for making some time for us to talk about this. But
sorry, I have to wave off a few people with the fingers, so thanks.
Yeah.
It's all good. Anytime. Thank you guys for having me on.
Of course, and keep us posted. You know, hopefully that fight with Roxanne will get made, and once we get that thing booked and get closer to International Fight Week, of course, that'll be here in Vegas and all that. Let's hope for the best with all that, and then come back on and let's talk about it.
Let's do it. Yeah, you could honestly. This would be one of those things you could have Roxanne and I both on, probably.
There you go. Let's maybe think about doing that. We get Roxanne in studio? Yeah, we could do something like that, of course. All right. Well, everybody follow Lauren on Instagram at Lauren Murphy, MMA. Nothing else for your Penny pics. You're going to see a lot more Penny on there. All right. All right. Listen, thanks again for the time, and we'll talk to you soon. Okay, Lauren?
All right. Talk to you guys later.
Bye.
Have a good one.
All right, Frank. Well, we led with Lauren Murphy because she was our special guest on the episode, but she was on the prelims. The main event at UFC 247 was Jon Jones once again successfully defending his light heavyweight title against Dominic Reyes. But I'll tell you what, Frank, this was not nearly as easy of a defense as a number of other Jon Jones defenses have been.
Yeah.
I actually thought it was entirely possible that Jon lost this fight 48-47. If he won it 48-47. I thought Dominic took the first 3 rounds the first 2 rounds, and Jones won the last 3. But you could make a very valid argument that Dominic might have won 3 rounds, and he bested Jones on most of the punch stat numbers.
I think all the punch stat numbers.
Yeah, pretty much everyone I saw, I think he...
Yeah, no, and I mean, hey, look, John's a friend of mine.
The only thing I will say, John got the couple of takedowns that could have made a difference, but they were not consequential, really.
And again, what I was saying earlier, that's why I want to take the course with McCarthy. Mm-hmm. You know, we sit here and just like Joe, you know, this or that, and I've sat next to Jon in shows and hear him talk and almost laughing about what people go, well, you know, it's almost kind of like, I think we all understand that's not true anymore. Mm-hmm. But when people always say that, like, well, you know, you really got to you got to beat the champ to take the title. Well, we all know that's not true. Each fighter, it's A and B. You know, just because you're the champ doesn't give you extra points going into each round. Where it's like, well, you're going to start with a 10-9 lead because you're the champ, and the other guy has to make a comeback. Like, but I think we still throw terms around where I realize that those don't matter. Like that's not judging criteria. Well, like he was really coming forward and controlling the ring. It's like that's very low on the ladder on what's important in judging fight criteria. Effective damage is number one, and then if that's even, then they go to quantity of work. That's two. Then the third one, if all else is equal, and Jon told me when he's seen fights that he's never got to that part. Like it never gets to the, well, both guys were even here and even here, and now we're going to say, well, who was in more control of positioning against the cage and maybe on the ground and controlling like it's almost impossible, he told me, to get to that part without one of the other two factors trumping first. Well, yeah, you had me against the cage, but since you didn't throw any strikes really, and I landed that one straight right hand that knocked your head back, I'm winning. Like I won that criteria. We don't get to go to the next criteria. Like because it's a fight, they're judging damage. And the fact that Dominic Reyes landed and caused what I thought was more damage going in the first 3 rounds. I thought the 3 rounds were his, even with the takedown with Jon in the third. And then obviously Jon won round 5 and won round 4. I don't think it was a blowout and an atrocity, but I thought I could sit there in the argument that maybe Jon won the 3rd round. I don't think that's crazy. I do think only giving Dominic 1 round, I would like to sit and talk to that judge and go, really? So like 1 and 2, you gave one of those rounds to Jon. How? You know what I mean? Like, I don't see it. Like he was outlanded, outscored, and didn't secure any takedowns. He completely got out kickboxed rounds 1 and 2. I mean, without anybody really, not really up for debate. Really, it's like if this was a kickboxing match, or just and what it was, because now there was no takedowns. Who won? Oh, DR did. You know what I mean? Like, so 1 and 2 are his. So how can he only get 1 round? Like, round 3 going, it's like, well, the takedown, the strikes, I get it. You know what I mean? It throws it off. That'd be like saying that round 5 was debatable. Well, I don't know. DR might have got that one. It's like, really? I don't think so. That was pretty much a Jon round. I don't see how you would equate that to, you know what I mean? Yeah. Same kind of how I thought round 1 was for, Dominic Reyes.
Yeah. I was talking to the MMA Junkie guys earlier about this, and we were talking about how, you always have to seize that moment of, like, if you're Dominic Reyes, try to get this rematch made as soon as possible. Because, first of all, you got Dana White acknowledging in the post-fight press conference, I would absolutely not mind seeing a rematch of these two guys. That's not a conversation that's always happened with Jon Jones victories just because they've been dominant.
Yeah.
But the same thing happened with Thiago Santos. And it shows you how quick out of sight, out of mind is, because that's a guy who dealt with a leg injury. And just in the time that he's been healing that up, here comes undefeated Dominic Reyes along, loses a very close fight to Jon Jones, and now everybody's on to that, when there was also a great case to be made for getting Thiago Santos a rematch. So it's kind of like, especially when you're up against one of the all-time greats like that, man, you gotta take advantage of when you're sharing a little bit of that spotlight as quick as you can before you're out of it.
Yeah, I mean, and now I thought that Jon would be able to do more damage on Dominic when he got him down. I did know that Jon would have a hard time striking with him because Jon's striking really, if you look at it, like he always has issues with guys that he doesn't have his significant reach advantage over. Height and reach, because Jon's not a very fast athlete. He's actually kind of on the slow side, really, when it comes to light heavyweights. Extremely strong, but his lack of speed and explosiveness is made up for by the fact that he has such long reach. Well, all of a sudden now, like when he went against Gustafsson in their first matchup, the striking, even in the second matchup, he was getting outstruck. He just took him down and beat him up on the ground. Jon was a little bit, as a fan of Jon and a friend, I'm sitting there going, man, this isn't looking good. Going into the 3rd round, I was quite nervous for Jon because Gustafsson's height nullified his height. And Jon needs that advantage in the striking world because of his lack of speed. And so you saw that in the Dominic Reyes fight. I knew that Jon couldn't strike with him. Dominic is a much quicker, athletic guy in that respect. Whereas once he got him down, though, I'm like, guys, Jon is ungodly strong. Daniel Cormier could tell you, he is shockingly strong. With farm boy strong. Like when he gets a hold of something, if he grabs your wrist, it's his wrist now. Like he's just, physically strong, can crunch down on people. And you saw that in the Gustafsson fight when Jon finally got Gus down. He slipped a leg in, he did a high single leg ride, grabbed wrist control, and boom, it was over with. Like you see Gustafsson just could not get out. He's like, whoa, I'm just, just like vacuumed in, turned to stone. And I thought there would be opportunities that, when Jon does that, it's going to beat up Dominic. Dominic was too slippery. I mean, the takedowns were almost almost to the point where they were insignificant because no damage was really done.
No, he got right back up.
Yeah, so it's like, do you really even count that? Like, I personally don't count that. Me getting a takedown and you bouncing up, this isn't a wrestling match. Takedowns for position. That would be like me going and slipping a punch coming at me, and I move out of the way and I push you off and I laugh. People go, oh, he's winning. I'm all, yeah, not really. That didn't do shit. The other guy threw a punch. You slipped it, got great positioning off the slip, and you didn't counter.
Yeah.
So if you get a takedown and you don't do any damage, it doesn't count in my opinion.
Those kinds of takedowns, to me, are reserved for factoring in fights like Lauren's we were just talking about. Where
everything else is dead even. Yes.
That's the only time you
100% agree with you. Well, it's like, okay, well, the other girl showed an initiative to get it to the ground and accomplish it. So now, okay, we're even here. Effective damage. Well, they both beat the shit out of each other. Okay, okay, effective quantity. Well, they're both throwing a lot. Okay, the bunch stats are about even. Well, the other girl got takedowns and she didn't. All right, well, I hate having a draw. There's our nod.
Those kind of takedowns are like when the vice president casts a vote in the Senate.
Yes.
It's only when it's 50-50.
Right. I would like to almost think, I wish we would start looking at takedowns like advantages, how we do in jiu-jitsu. So all of my guys at home, the jiu-jitsu practitioners will understand this, meaning that if the score is tied, now advantages come into play, right? Who got more advantages? Yeah. Whereas I think in a fight, if everything is tied, then we can go to who took down who more. But a takedown should be thought as of taking someone down, and then like how Jon did to he was the one heavyweight champ, Brandon Vera. He gets Brandon Vera down and boom, 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 crushes his eye in. You know what I mean? Like that's like typically, or how he did against Gustafsson. Normally when Jon gets on top of somebody, Chael Sonnen. You know what I mean? Like it's bad to be there. He does damage. So now it's like, well, it's not the takedown that I'm counting. Yeah, you're on top, but what you did with that takedown. So, but some people get obsessed with, well, he got the takedown. I'm all, but if there's not that damage afterwards, it doesn't count.
Yeah.
It will count last on my list. It's like, well, nothing else happened, or there was no way to teeter over left or right, blue or red guy. It was like, well, it was even. Well, here we give the nod. Well, he got a takedown every round. All right, well, there we go. There's our push over the edge.
Yeah. What is your thought about? I never understand when people factor in percentages of efficiency. So let's say because in that fight, when the punch stat numbers were reasonably, close, maybe within 6 or so strikes in any given round, but Reyes won that. They will also show ratio to show, well, yeah, but he threw a lot more punches that missed. I understand you can give credit for, okay, well, the other guy's defense was really good, but it's hard for me to overlook, yeah, but the other guy was moving his limbs a lot more. So what if it took me twice as many throws to land more strikes? I still landed more strikes. And to me, that's advantage me that I was the busier fighter. I just never understand that accuracy
I
thing.
think that for exactly what you're talking about, it's hard to use that as a factor for claiming one guy's superior over another because there's two big arguments. One, you can sit there and go, wow, yes, this guy threw 10 punches, but he landed 4 of them, so a 40% accuracy. Wow, he's more accurate. And then you go, well, the other guy threw 30 punches, right? Oh, but he only landed like 2 of them. Like, well, I guess he landed 6 punches and he landed 2 more, but it took 3 times the effort to do so. It's like, yeah, but now he's at a 20% accuracy rate. Oh, okay. So I can sit there and see the argument both ways where it makes it hard to, because you're right. One guy is more accurate, more selective about his shot, so he's landing more. He's not wasting energy. That's an effective martial artist. Then you can flip on the other side, go, well, the other guy's more aggressive and he's showing intent to want to hurt somebody, and he's going after it. So then why isn't the guy who's more accurate throwing more punches? Oh, he's not as in good shape, or he doesn't want it as much. He's not as aggressive. Mm-hmm. So like, both are admirable qualities to have in combat. A guy who can push down on the pedal and grind, or a guy who's selective and shoots. So like now you're kind of comparing apples to oranges. And so sit there to say one's better than the other. I'm like, well, on the circumstances or kind of your opinion, really, I don't see how percentage outdoes quantity, because it's like, again, like I said, you can argue either way. So that's why I effectively go to who just landed more, whether it took you 1,000 punches to land them or not. Now, as a fighter, I obviously prefer to have a higher percentage of my shots land. But at the end of the day, if we're going to count effective damage, how does percentage get pulled into that argument? If you sit there and go, well, he landed 5 straight right hands and he landed 2. If we're talking about damage, well, the 5 did more damage than the 2. What does it matter how many it took me to get the 5?
Right.
Now, as a trainer and as a person, as a fighter, I want to make sure that I have as high a percentage as possible because I'm not wasting energy. And
Understood.
But that comes from me as in the gym on working on things. But at the end of the day, it's like, that's nice, but what counts is what landed.
I don't understand why that's ever – I don't know if it's just a conversation piece for analysts, but it's always strange to me when that gets folded into the same equation as significant strikes.
Well, because how does that go in there? It's like, well, he did more damage, but he was more accurate.
Yeah.
That's, again, to me, like it's certain things. Like, I guess a good analogy, again, football. If a quarterback throws 5 touchdowns, they're 5 touchdowns. Even if the other quarterback has a higher QB rating, we're not going to sit there and go, well, yeah, but he threw 2 interceptions and they scored 5. But the other guy has a phenomenal QB rating. He only threw for 1, but he's 10 for 10.
That's not on the scoreboard.
No one cares, dude.
Right.
You're right. Now, as I'm selecting my quarterbacks, or if I'm training you, hey, dude, our completion ratio, you're forcing the ball in here. We got to figure this out. Like, that's part of that's for me as the coach to have.
Yeah.
QB rating doesn't count to the score of the game. Right? So I think that's the same analogy I would use for this. Fight percentage as far as what you're landing, it's like a QB rating. Yeah, the higher percentage, the better. But at the end of the day, touchdowns trump everything.
Yeah, agreed. In the co-main event, this was
easier to judge.
This was easier to judge. Valentina Shevchenko just absolutely dominates her opponent, Caitlin Chookagian. To me, Valentina Shevchenko is a very important component right now of the UFC women's flyweight division because as a new division, still a very new division.
Do you feel like they push her enough?
No. And
I'm wondering why. She is very easy to look at by anybody's standards, right? I mean, Jesus. I mean, without getting anybody pissed at me, she's beautiful, right? She's fierce. She's dedicated. She's focused. I mean, she's like complete mixed martial arts game.
Speaks great English. There's no language barrier.
And then multicultural. I mean, being Russian, so, and you're right, speaks great English. So there's not like, like with Anderson Silva and Lyoto Machida. They could speak English, but it wasn't the greatest, at times. So I could see how that would inhibit you with the fans. But like, to me, Shevchenko is a marketing daydream, goldmine. Like, holy shit, guys! Like, why is she not doing movies already? Like, don't you guys have a connection with the movie industry there at the UFC? Why is she not doing roles right now? I mean, I don't understand why she's not just the darling of the UFC. I mean, she is. I mean, and then on top of that, like, there's nothing bad about her. Like, I don't hear about her, coming out of clubs at 5 a.m. smashing people's phones.
Not a malcontent.
No, like, I mean, everything about her is just, she's a good role model. Like, when Isabella, like, look, I'm a father, so obviously I'm getting a little old, long on the tooth, so I don't look at women just as beautiful. I'm like, oh, she's a good role model for Bella. Bella goes, oh, this girl's fighting style. I'm like, yes, inside and outside the cage, a person of great character.
And she shoots guns. That's got to get you excited.
She's. I mean, dude, I don't get why it's like. Hey, how come like she's not being pushed?
Yeah. Well, I think perhaps it is the fact, and that's still I don't have a direct answer for that. But what I was going to say is that this flyweight division was before she really established herself and took that title, I think, very much in need of a superstar.
Yeah.
And now we need to build a couple of legit rivals for her. So that's what, like we were talking with Lauren a minute ago, I mean, she's got to be cracking the top 5, I would think, with this win over Andrea Lee. And, you got another veteran like Roxanne. But you're also going to need somebody who works their way up to a title shot and then creates a compelling narrative to compete with her. But you definitely she is the crown jewel right now, literally and figuratively, of this division.
And I mean, and that's to me, the women's 25-pound weight class is the same as the men's 70. Like, most women walk around at 125 pounds, just like most men are between 165 and 180. I think what they say the average man is 158 pounds. That's a stat they've had for years. I think Americans have been on the bigger side. Most of your athletes, you walk into the gym right now, I weigh everybody. Most guys, being a welterweight is where they're at. Just like being a flyweight for a girl, most women are that size. There's not a lot of girls that have a six-pack and walk around at 155 pounds. And just, and being 105, that's a little on the lighter side for your average female athlete. But 125 pounds, that's going to be the biggest pool of athletes to pull from. So in every way, it's like it's win-win. Where like Cyborg was a difficult sell, for different factors, but one specifically is most girls aren't that big. You know what I mean? Like, you don't have a large abundance, just like heavyweights. Man, I'll be fighting until I'm 50 because there's just not a lot of guys that are big, athletic, and willing to fight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, there's a short list, and always in demand.
Yeah. Agreed. Well, we will now look ahead to the March card. We'll have that to talk about pretty soon with Israel Adesanya and with Yoel Romero. Did you see their dance-off the other day?
I did not.
See if you can pull that up, Mike. Did you see it, Mikey?
I saw that. I didn't.
Let me see this.
Yeah, just see if you can. They did the. Yeah, see if you can find it there while we're talking for a second. Hey, here's some breaking news. It's coming down just as we're taping here. Jesse Smollett. Remember Jesse Smollett?
Oh yeah, the guy that faked the.
Yeah, he has been indicted for making false statements to police. So
that dude just.
Remember when the charges were dropped and now they're back?
And he didn't shut the hell up when that happened. It's like, dude, you're done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's embarrassing what you did, but like, go ahead and just let's walk with our tail between our legs, apologize, and let's get the hell out of Dodge. And that dude, like, I think he brought it upon himself.
Pause it there for a second.
He started criticizing, basically, I'm innocent. This is a big scandal, cover up.
Yeah, he doubled down.
Yeah, it's like you're doubling down. Like, hey, dude, they let you off the hook.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you got caught and you got let off the hook, and you're going to turn around and act like I'm really the victim here. And it's like, dude, shut up. Like, I couldn't imagine being his agent and just being like, can we send this guy off to Siberia for a month or two and just take his phone? Like, shut up.
Yeah. Now, I don't know. Okay, so it's 6 charges of. All 6 charges involve lying to cops. I guess the actual title of them is disorderly conduct. It was dropped down from 16 charges to 6, but I'm not sure why. Okay, because the charges were originally dropped by the state, so I'm not they were dismissed. I'm just not exactly sure how this doesn't involve double jeopardy, but I guess maybe there are different charges are called something different. I'm not sure, because generally speaking, I think when charges are dropped, well, certainly when you're acquitted, you can't be retried for the same crime, but I didn't realize they could just be dismissed and then brought back later.
Because you weren't tried.
Maybe that's
You're thinking like a double jeopardy, but that's if you're tried and found innocent, you can't go back.
Yeah, maybe
they can't
they
just
always
keep taking you back to court.
Had the ability to
but if
bring
I
them
drop
back,
charges and then new information comes forward, or you yourself want to call into question the people's integrity, and they, because the DA dropped the charges, but then he goes and assaults the mayor, and the mayor comes back going, "Wait a minute, dude. Yeah. Okay, we're going to look into this." And if he had just kept his mouth shut, he would have been old news. He would have been out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah. All right, let's go to this dance-off here. This was at the face-off between Adesanya and Yoel Romero. Go and blow it up big there, Mikey, and hit it. Facing off, typical face-off right now. Courtesy of MMA Fighting here, this video, by the way.
It does look like a gay marriage. I see
like Dana White's officiating.
Yeah, he's officiating, and they look like, right? If you didn't know the context they were fighting, I said, hey, these two guys are getting married. The way they're staring at each other, right? It's how all stare downs look.
Now they're giving Adesanya his belt. Okay, he's standing there. Crowd's applauding. Yoel Romero puts on his cab driver's hat there. Adesanya's doing a little move, a little salsa there. Oh, here comes Yoel Romero. Oh, backflip, splits. How are you going to answer that, Israel Adesanya? He starts to answer it, and then he says, wait, you know what? I don't know if I have a move to counter that. I'll save it for the fight. And the handshake.
Now, that guy's one hell of an athlete, Adesanya, but Yoel Romero, man, he's one of the most athletic fighters. Yeah. I think he's the greatest athlete we probably ever had in MMA. Silver medals in the Olympics. I mean, international level, just unreal. I mean, if you watch some of his wrestling matches, I watched one time a guy grabbed him in a single, lifted him up above his shoulders, and Yoel crawled down his back and flipped. I mean, like the defense he had. If we were like, all right, guys, this is what we're going to work on today, and if you watch that, you're like, okay, are we going to dodge bullets next? Like that's not physically possible.
Yeah. Now, your advice for Adesanya in that dance-off, knowing what I've heard you say before about Yoel Romero being the race car, would be for Adesanya to just keep dancing and wait for Yoel Romero to get tired.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, for wrestling, again, wrestling is a explosive anaerobic sport. That's why when you see wrestlers go on long jogs, I'm like, dude, that's weight maintenance. They're not getting in shape. It's short burst explosions, sprints, suicide type movements. Suicide sprinting. That's what a wrestling workout and wrestler has to be like. Kickboxing is much more of a middle distance type of run. Like you got to be in shape for some explosions, but it's to be constant motion. You can kickbox or box, for several rounds. You can't wrestle for that many rounds without stalling and looking bad. In jiu-jitsu, we have long periods, but there's no stalling really. I mean, so guys kind of sit there and they don't really push the metal. So that's something that just Yoel still has an issue with if he doesn't get you out of there. Just him standing there breathing is just absorbing a lot of energy. He's just very anaerobic, and so if Adesanya can keep the fight at a distance and dance around, even if he gave up the first 2 rounds, I would be like, hey man, in round 3, round 4, round 5, we're going to come after this guy. I would not go near, even with obviously the striking prowess of Adesanya. He's definitely the better striker. But Yoel's power is just unreal. I mean, he crushed Chris Weidman's forehead with a knee. The punch he hit on it knocked him out against the cage.
Luke Rockhold.
Rockhold. I mean, it just takes one shot from that guy. He's just so powerful, and you're always looking for the shot, because if he grabs you and throws you down, it's menacing to be on the bottom of that guy.
Here's some other breaking news. Roger Stone, campaign advisor to
they fired
Donald Trump.
No, he resigned, right?
Well, Roger Stone was facing 7 to 9 years in prison. Roger Stone
until Trump fixed it,
was convicted of lying under oath, obstructing justice. Pretty blatant stuff. And I dealt with this knucklehead in the waning days of the life of Dennis Hoff, the owner of the Bunny Ranch, because Roger Stone was hanging out at the Love Ranch down here in Vegas, cozying up to Dennis for his state legislature campaign. In fact, when Dennis died, Roger Stone came out and claimed that he suspected foul play because Dennis was getting too close to the truth or some nonsense like that. But Trump tweeted yesterday that it was an unfair request. You know, the Justice Department is supposed to be independent, and then today, 24 hours later, Bob Barr, the Attorney General, announces that he is overruling the federal prosecutor's recommendation on the sentencing, which is unprecedented. Now, all 4 federal prosecutors have just quit in response to it. Listen, politics aside for a second, is anybody okay with this kind of stuff? I mean, the Justice Department is supposed to be independent. I go back to Richard Nixon and Charles Manson. If you don't know, there was a time when Charles Manson was on trial during Nixon's administration, and Nixon publicly said that Charles Manson was guilty. Now, this is Richard Nixon, okay? As many problems as Richard Nixon had, he apologized. He backed, wait a second, I shouldn't be weighing in judicial matters. So, and that wasn't even involving his former campaign advisor. He didn't have any, he never lived out at Spawn Ranch.
Right.
But it was just the idea that, you know what, the president doesn't weigh in on pronouncing people guilty or innocent or wrongly accused or railroaded or any of the rest of that. Boy, that's not the case anymore.
No. Well, I think
does that bother you?
You're going to have to start getting used to, buddy, is that people have conducted themselves in a way that there are rules and there is behavior. You know, and we have, what's the word I'm trying to look for here? Like, you know, when people says, you know, they've used it a couple times, the terminology discussing Trump's phone call, where they said, well, it maybe was bad precedent or bad decorum or
judgment.
Right, but not necessarily breaking the law.
Right.
Well, and I think that's the problem that we're all having, or people are having, that is that they go, well, you know, you shouldn't do this or do that. And we would actually use that as a basis of, you know, for example, like if we were kids in class, you standing there and shaking your head left and right during the class would be inappropriate, right? You're disrupting the class, but there might not be a specific rule for it. You don't find out that they don't have a rule for it. So Trump now, you know, he does things that people go, well, you know, for example, you know, Nixon was never removed from office because after the impeachment, he just stepped down. He was never even impeached. Before it comes through, I can see where this is going. And even then, from what I understand, I mean, they had enough Republicans in Senate that if Nixon really wanted to go through with it, he could have gotten impeached and then survived and never been released, just like Clinton was and how Trump was. But because it's like, you know what, my conduct's been inappropriate, it's bringing on shame to the party, to the people that might defend me, I'm going to step out. Well, people keep thinking Trump's going to, you know, act according to those lines. Like, you know, for example, firing now Vindman, you know what I mean? Like, be like, wait a minute, isn't that like, you can't do that? Like, aren't they protected for, well, no, it's like, well, now we're going to have to start this process over and go through and look at it. But people would go, that's a bad idea. Well, now it keeps a lot of people from doing things like, hey, you know what? Walking around in your bikini right now outside, or if I were to put on a pair of Speedos and a bra, I can walk around outside. There's no rule for it. But most people would talk me out of it, and I'd go, yeah, it's probably not a good idea. I mean, I want Twitter hits or, you know, Instagram hits, but I'm not going to take a picture of myself in a bikini walking down the street. Just, you know, that's not how I want to be seen, you know, like, whereas Trump would walk down the street with a bikini on, because if that's what it took, you know, to get attention, or if that to accomplish his goals, there is no, well, that's inappropriate. There's no decorum anymore with the presidency.
I guess the part that weirds me out the most about it is, to use that bizarre analogy. If
did you get a good visual?
Yeah,
one
that I can't unsee. But also imagine though, if your entire support system were people who would otherwise be absolutely opposed to anybody else doing it. But I'm a Frank Mir fan. You know what? Who's doing it? Oh, Frank. Okay, well that's different.
Yeah, no,
that's my guy.
Hear people say it. He gets a pass in ways that other people don't. And look, and I've talked to you about this. I jump back and forth because I don't really have. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I sit there and go, that was a good idea. That was a bad idea. Like, I try to look at people for their actions. Where I feel like right now you're having a community in the U.S. where it's like the Trump fans, no matter what, are Trump fans. Yeah. And then but on the same side, on the other way, Trump could do no good to his enemies. Like, for as many fanatics as you have Trump supporters, the never Trumpers, there are a percentage of them that I feel like it's like, well, are you always like, I mean, he hasn't done anything good. Like, we can't argue that there are positives at all. No, everything is just evil. It's like, I don't agree with that either. You know what I mean? Like, I think that, and that's the hard part about reality and being a grown-up, is that the world is very gray, and we got to bounce back and forth and go, well, I like this, I didn't like that, we got to go here, you know?
I'll give him credit fighting for prison reform. So right there's something that I agree with. But what I'm saying is that there are, and Mike, you weigh in here because, I mean, you're a conservative guy, but aren't there these things like, for example, the Justice Department is supposed to be independent of the executive branch. I mean, aren't there these things where it's like, I don't care if you're my guy or the other guy, don't fucking do that. That's not what we do.
Yeah, I came up with the analogy. There's sort of like in baseball, like the unwritten rules of baseball. Right. Like, you're not supposed to, do a bat flip, or you're not supposed, it's just sort of like a gentleman's agreement, but there's no rule that says you can't. Mm-hmm. And I think what's going on is like, it's like, fuck it, there's no rule. And I'm going in.
You explained it much better than I think that's what I was trying.
Yeah,
I know what I was trying to explain.
It's like, one of the things,
you
like,
did a much better job.
You don't steal a base when you have a lead, but we're like, fuck it, I'm stealing the base because I want to get the second. I want to get my stats up, and I think that's kind of like we're kind of at a win at all costs, and I think it's both sides are at a win at all costs. I think the stakes.
Yeah, because I'm starting as I pay more attention. Like, look, I'm paying attention to Bernie, but the part that I'm starting to see that also kind of scares me a little bit is like at least the other girl,
Warren,
Elizabeth Warren. She explains how she thinks that single payer will work, right? I don't really get a great explanation on Bernie explaining a lot of these things. So there's some times where Bernie also too there's a like, I am never wrong. Like, Bernie seems to have like this. I will never ever bend no matter what. And I'm like, and that stance bothers me because I'm a fighter, right? And I see life. Anytime you sit there and go, I never will do this or I'll always do this, I'm like, as of yet, you know what I mean? Like, as of yet, because to me, life's too much of a big picture. For example, them talking, well, if Bloomberg doesn't get the nomination, he has stated that he will support whoever does. And then now Bernie Sanders has been asked, well, you're against billionaires, but now you have a billionaire saying he's going to help you to beat Trump. Mm-hmm. Would you accept it? And Bernie doesn't outright say no, but he's sitting there going, well, I would not accept billionaire help. It's like, but wait a minute, isn't the overall objective to get into the White House so that if you're a Bernie guy, you should want to win because you're going to bring better good, but you're saying that I won't win at that. And I'm like, well, I mean, do I really want you as my president if you're not willing to go? Yeah. If you say, hey, this is the objective to get it, I'm like, well, what happens? Because you're always going to break eggs making an omelet. Like, there's no perfect way to get anything done. Like, you have an electric car. Like, having an electric car, I can see the positives in it. But guess what? The cobalt that they have to mine for it.
And the lithium.
Like, that is causing damage over here. So you sit there and go, well, it's like half a dozen in one and six in another. It's like now you have to start trying to navigate that. And because life is so much of a spider web, anytime someone tells me I will always hear, I'm all, yeah, but I can find a situation where maybe you're going to put your values in here and have to make judgment calls based on other things. Like, that's why we don't just have there's not just a scrolling chart on a judge's platform, right? When he's up there by his gavel going, oh, you robbed a store, 2 years. Oh, you did this, 3 years. Like, they take into account every circumstance. Like, you robbed a store, but you got let from your job, you were starving, you ran in, you grabbed food, you ran out. They're like, that was wrong. It was a crime. Anybody, yeah. Or you're some rich kid who has a bunch of money and decided to rob the store and push over an old lady on the way out, and you broke her hip because you wanted to go for a beer run, even though you have a Black MX card in your pocket. Like, well, guess what? You both robbed the store, but guess whose punishment's going to be more severe because I took in all the factors. You see what I'm saying? Like, there's a big picture to everything.
Yeah. Yes, but it's different, though, if we're talking about political strategies, whether they be cutthroat or compromising or whatever that is, and things that just, like Mikey's talking about, unwritten rules that rise to the level of whether or not they're flat out illegal, and by the way, some of these things are, but even if they're not, the fact that we are violating, because, let me use this example. So what you've got, one thing that you have seen as a recurring theme in the Trump administration is acting secretaries. So now that he's 3+ years into this, he's realized that it's tough to have a cabinet full of secretaries where you're having to listen to them and play well with them and compromise or whatever, right? And we've seen some of those people quit or get fired or whatever. So now you get a bunch of acting people. Well, the reason they're acting is they don't have to be approved by the Senate. So Mikey's not our producer, he's our acting producer, because if he's acting, I don't have to get Frank's approval on him, and I know that Frank would never approve of him, so I just have him acting until his time to just be acting runs out. Then I'm going to switch you out, put in another acting guy, but I'm always going to have my guy in there, and I'm going to circumvent Frank's approval. Now, maybe I found a loophole to do that, but in the past, if you would have asked me, hypothetically, like pre-2016, hey, technically, could a president just avoid all Senate confirmations by just always having people acting? My honest answer to you would have been, well, yeah, technically could have, but he'd never do it. No one would ever do it because it would look politically disastrous. And what we're finding out is that people who support that, they just don't care. And so when you've got things like, I don't understand how we get around the Justice Department's supposed to be independent. I mean, isn't that just something we can all agree on? Right.
Well, I think that it's the stakes. I feel like that the average voter feels like the stakes are higher if their person loses. Like, I feel like that it's so much doom and gloom, whether Trump wins, whether, the Democrat Party wins. They're pushing, the not even socialism. They're calling, the Democrats like communists and stuff now. Yeah. And the same thing, they're saying Trump's a dictator. Well, he's not a dictator because, would anyone, draw the fucking signs or tweet the bullshit they do about him if he was a real dictator? You know what I mean?
Try to act act that way in China. So what happens to you.
And so they're putting that fear, and so you're pushing aside. You're like, you know what? Like when I don't want Oprah to win. Like now people are like, well, fuck. Well, I'd rather have Oprah than whatever the right is. Yeah. I think people. I mean, you won't, but I think people are pushing aside. Like especially the conservatives. Like they kind of have the nose in traditionally the nose in the air. We're the conservative socially, the Christian populace, and we won't stand for this shit. And I think now that's getting put aside because the fear of the extremist views of the left, whether it's real, whether it's being pushed by conservative media, by their Republican candidates, is overweighing. Fuck it, I don't want that shit. What's it? It's going to a win at all costs. Before they would feel like, well, if a Democrat gets in, we're gonna win in the Senate, or we're gonna vote for my guys, and maybe we'll stall the whatever. But now I feel like it's all or nothing, and that I think people are just scared shitless.
There's a lot more fear
of the other side winning, that they're willing to sacrifice maybe their morals or maybe just not even pay attention to the stuff that's going on and go, well, fuck it, as long as the Democrats aren't in.
And that's such a terrible idea, because I'm going to tell you something. As somebody who has been a supporter of Bernie Sanders long before he ever even ran for president the first time, if you told me that he was going to get elected president, but he was going to be acting like you're right, Mikey, not a dictator with all the power, but somebody who clearly would like to be an authoritarian. And also I think maybe somebody who, and I do believe this is true in Trump's case, got into office not realizing that the presidency wasn't more like that. I think when he got in, he probably got a civics lesson of, wait a second, my power's kind of not absolute. Like, I didn't realize I had to work with other people and other branches as much as I do. If you told me that was going to be a Bernie Sanders presidency, as much as I would otherwise want him or someone like him to be president, I can be honest with you, I'd say, well, we can't do it because this hurts the democracy long after that person's president. We're getting into the presidency. Let me tell you something. It should be boring. It should be stuffy. It shouldn't be particularly entertaining. It should be for people who are interested in math. I mean, just the idea that this is, a hoot for people. Like, the presidency should never be a hoot. The president should never be the fuck you guy. And I don't care if it's my fuck you guy. Like, I could have a fuck you guy, but I would be derelict in my responsibility as a member of a democracy to be sitting here going, ha ha, fuck you. My guy's running roughshod over you,
I think the difference in mentality between what you're saying and what a lot of other people are thinking is that, you're saying that if you had a glass of water and you saw dirt in it, you're not, you're like, I'm going to keep trying until I get the proper glass of water. Yeah. Right? To quench my thirst. Whereas you have other people going, I'm thirsty. There's some dirt here, but I'm drinking it anyways because I want the water.
And I think you're having people saying, like, listen, you could dehydrate in an hour. You could die if you don't get water in an hour. You know what I mean? And then you're going, and, you are smart enough to go, like, no, it takes 3 days to get dehydrated. But other people are like, oh, shit, like, I heard from Brad that, I could dehydrate in an hour and a half. So, you know what I mean? I think that's what it is, too.
Let me just, if I can just put a bow on that analogy maybe, or just add a quick thing to it. How about if it's just like water that's spiked with vodka? Like, everybody's telling me that's going to be a lot more fun, especially when it's your party. You know what I mean? Like, hey, this is going to make it a lot more fun. And I'm going, the vodka doesn't belong in the water. That's not when we're talking about our water supply. That's for the bar.
Yeah, but the problem is
that over there.
To add what I think Mikey's trying to say, and I agree with you 100%, is that everybody thinks their side might have the vodka in the water, but the other side has cyanide in the water. Right. So they're like, look, you know what? You're right. Vodka's bad. I get it. You hear people saying that right now. Like, look at the economy. This is what it says. But, yes, I don't like what he says on Twitter or whatever, his rhetoric. And that's kind of maybe the field that I'm falling in now. Where I'm sitting there going, yeah, I wish he would stop saying certain things about Mexicans and immigrants and things that are just not, fact-based, and whatnot. But look, things are going well in the economy here and there, but then you have, to the flip side, people are going, yeah, but like if Bernie Sanders is socialism, this and that, and just it's so much fear on the other side that everybody's just doubling down on their own agenda.
Well, fear historically has been how a lot of this happens. Let's you getting the wrap. All right, one last question, Mikey.
In the back, I'm getting the
yeah. He's getting the light from the soundboard in the comedy club. All right, Mikey. By my calculations, you have exactly 17 more days. Before you are not the one of only 2 humans that live in your house.
Yeah, we're down to the 1 week. Every week we have a doctor's appointment just to check and how it's going. So, the 29th, and today's, the 11th. Yeah, today's the...
What's the baby weighing in at right now?
They haven't done ultrasound in a while, so they don't know. Back the last time they measured, she was in the 91st percentile as far as size for babies. And that includes boys and girls. So, like, I'm 6'1", and Amanda's 5'1". So we always kind of joked that, like, if we have a girl, she's going to be huge, and if we have a boy, she's going to be... But so it looks like we're going to have a healthy to large size baby going on.
Is her beard coming in yet? Can they tell that on ultrasound?
They did. They did do a quick ultrasound.
Have you done the 4D?
No, we didn't do that. We were going to, but then we were like, well, shit. It's like 2 weeks away. We're just going to see her in 3D in person.
Yeah, but it's still cool to have there.
Yeah, it was cool, but then we kind of just like. I think it just sort of time passes by. I'm like, shit, now it's 2 weeks. But
I did 4D with all 3 of my kids, man. You're looking at your child. It's unreal.
But yeah, she's flipped. Her head's in the right spot. She's ready to
break out.
She's ready to break out. So I mean, everything's on track. I think Amanda and I are both kind of like we like to prepare for the worst case scenario. So we're kind of waiting for something, but everything is on track right now. And doctor says she's going to go full term, so it's...
When do you just have to stop? Because as somebody who's never been through this, it's weird to me that you're here. Like, even though it's 18 days away, like, isn't there some point where you just have to stop and not think about anything else until this happens?
Well, I have nights games booked on the 26th and the 28th. So we already have a plan to have Amanda's mom come over to the house just in case. And you feel contractions, like, they start, like you'll have contractions, like, every couple hours, and then every hour, then maybe your water breaks when they're, like, every half hour. So you have time when you start feeling contractions. She hasn't felt a contraction yet. So it would be something where, like, and the doctor says, like, you'll know when it's in contraction versus, like, you know, when, like she said, if you can walk, talk, laugh through a contraction, through it, then it's not a contraction. It's just a cramp or a pain. So we'll kind of know when there's a contraction. Then we kind of, okay, then if she has a contraction during the day, then I'll have to call work and they'll call you guys, say, hey, I can't make it. Like, you know, we're starting the labor process. So, I mean, it hits, everyone's different and every pregnancy is different, but I think we have enough, like a time within a day, you know, to kind of
mean, by the time your woman goes into labor, you know, if people, because women will talk about how long their labor lasted. You know, like Jen was pretty quick, and I think she was like, you know, 16 to 18 hours, you know. Like, you know, it's an hourly conversation. I never hear anybody ever going, I'm in contractions. Oh, there's the baby. You know what I mean? Like, unless you, I mean, there's guys that, you know, can probably catch a flight and come in by the time they're right.
Well, that's assuming she's punctual because, you know, not everybody's on time. I'll have you know, I think I was the better part of a month late. I was supposed to be born in August. I wasn't born until September 18th. I was a cesarean baby, and you can see how well everything's turned out. So
yeah, our doctor said that, like, they have to pull you by 41 and a half weeks.
Yeah, so, that's when you get the eviction notice. Yeah, like, all right, we waited long
actually,
enough.
They used to be able to schedule you 2 weeks early if you were. You can be induced, or especially if you were having a cesarean.
Yeah,
up until Ronan. For Cage and Bella, the doctor would say, okay, this is your 40-week mark, so you can go as early as 2 weeks before. And then now they stopped that because so many women didn't want to go that loud. You know, they've been pregnant for so long. So, like, just induce me, you know. And so then they schedule their delivery.
Well, yeah, Amanda's best friend is a type 1 diabetic, so they had a scheduled C-section before. So, yeah, they'll schedule sometimes or induce or something.
That has something to do with being diabetic.
I don't know. I didn't know the details why, but she said that because she's a type 1 diabetic, they guess the risk, I don't know, risk of blood loss. They just wanted to control the situation. I got
to hurry up. So, all right. I'm feeling really good, guys. My training's going well. Mitrospec is really helping out with the kratom. And also, hey, American Shaman, the CBD company that I'm on, that I'm very much enjoying my training now. I just think I posted a new video coming up here pretty soon of me working out. I'm feeling great. So, hey, go on my, all my different Instagram, Facebook. You can see my American Shaman, Mitrospec, and then hell, if you guys have any questions about the stem cell, man, text me. I'll get them in contact with you. BioAccelerator has been changing my life. So
I gotta see if I can sell the umbilical cord for the stem cells, get some money back from this whole shindig. Yeah.
I don't think you can't sell them here in the U.S. Yeah. If you're in Colombia, you'd be good, dude.
Yeah, I'd be rolling.
At the Frank Mir on Instagram. All right, folks, for Frank Mir, for Porno Mikey producing, UFC flyweight Lauren Murphy joining us earlier, I'm Richard Hunter, and we'll see you right back here next time for another Phone Booth Fighting.